24. Herbert Witherspoon. Memory, Imagination, Analysis. No doubt the serious teacher, who may be occupied in any branch of musical activity, has often pictured to himself what an ideal institution of musical art might be like if all students assembled should study thoroughly their particular instrument, together with all that pertain to it. They should by all means possess talent, intelligence, industry, and be far removed from a superficial attitude toward their chosen field. The studio used for instruction in this imagined institution should also be ideal, quiet, airy, homelike, artistic. Some such vision perhaps floats before the minds of some of us teachers when we are in the mood to dream of ideal conditions under which we would like to see our artwork conducted. It has been possible for Mr. Herbert Witherspoon, the distinguished basso and teacher, to make such a dream picture come true. For he has established an institution of vocal art, in effect if not in name, where all the subjects connected with singing are considered and taught in the order of their significance. Not less ideal is the building which contains these studios, for Mr. Witherspoon has fitted up his private home as a true abiding place for the muse. At the close of a busy day, marked like all the rest with a full complement of lessons, the master teacher was willing to relax a little and speak of the work in which he is so deeply absorbed. He apologized for having run over the time of the last lesson, saying he never could teach by the clock. "I do not like to call this a school," he began, "although it amounts to one in reality, but only in so far as we take up the various subjects connected with vocal study. I consider languages of the highest importance. We have them taught here. There are classes in analysis, in pedagogy, teaching teachers how to instruct others. We have an excellent master for acting and for stage deportment. I advise that students know something of acting, even if they do not expect to go in for opera. They learn how to carry themselves and are more graceful and self-possessed before an audience. The work has developed far beyond my expectations. There are over 200 students, and I have 8 assistants who have been trained by me and know my ways and methods. Some of these give practice lessons to students, who alternate them with the lessons given by me. These lessons are quite reasonable, and in combination with my work, give the student daily attention. My plan is not to accept every applicant who comes, but to select the most promising. The applicants must measure up to a certain standard before they can enter. To this one fact is due much of our success. And what are these requirements? Voice, to begin with. Youth, unless the idea is to teach, good looks, musical intelligence, application. If the candidate possesses these requisites, we begin to work. In 3 months' time, it can be seen whether the student is making sufficient progress to come up to our standard. Those who do not are weeded out. You can readily see that as a result of this weeding process, we have some very good material and fine voices to work with. We have many musicals and recitals, both public and private, where young singers have an opportunity to try their wings. There is a most generous, unselfish spirit among the students. They rejoice in each other's success, with never a hint of jealousy. We have had a number of recitals in both Yolian and Carnegie Halls, given by the artist students this season. On these occasions, the other students always attend and take as much interest as though they were giving the recital themselves. Bel canto. You have remarked lately that singers are realizing that the lost art of bel canto is the thing to strive for, and they are now searching for it. Can you give a little more light on this point? I hardly meant to say that in any sense the art of bel canto was lost. How could it be? Many singers seem to attach some uncanny significance to the term. Bel canto means simply beautiful singing. When you have perfect breath control and distinct, artistic enunciation, you will possess bel canto, because you will produce your tones and your words beautifully. Because these magic words are in the Italian tongue does not mean that they apply to something only possessed by Italians. Not at all. Anyone can sing beautifully who does so with ease and naturalness, the American just as well as those of any other countries. In fact, I consider American voices, in general, better than English voices. better trained than those of Italy, Germany, or France. The Italian, in particular, has very little knowledge of the scientific side. He usually sings by intuition. We ought to have our own standards in judging American voices. Until we do so, we will be constantly comparing them with the voices of foreign singers. The quality of the American voice is different from the quality found in the voices of other countries. To my mind, the best women's voices are found right here in our midst. Memory. I have also said that there are 3 great factors which should form the foundation stones upon which the singer should rear his structure of musical achievement. These factors are memory, imagination, analysis. I have put memory first because it is the whole thing, so to say. The singer without memory, a cultivated memory, does not get far. Memory lies at the very foundation of his work and must continue with it the whole journey through, from the bottom to the top. In the beginning you think a beautiful tone, you try to reproduce it. When you come to it again, you must remember just how you did it before. Each time you repeat the tone, this effort of memory comes in, until at last it has become second nature to remember and produce the result. You now begin to do so automatically. As you advance, there are words to remember as well as notes and tones. Memory, of course, is just as necessary for the pianist. He must be able to commit large numbers of notes, phrases, and passages. In his case, there are a number of keys to grasp at once, but the singer can sing but one tone at a time. Both notes and words should be memorized, so the singer can come before the audience without being confined to the printed page. When acting is added, there is still more to remember. Back of memory study lies concentration. Without concentration, little can be accomplished in any branch of art. Imagination. The central factor is imagination. What can be done without it? Can you think of a musician, especially a singer, without imagination? He may acquire the letter, that is, execute the notes correctly, but the performance is dead, without life or soul. With imagination, he comprehends what is the inner meaning of the text, the scene, also what the composer had in mind when he wrote. Then he learns to express these emotions in his own voice and action through the imaginative power, which will color his tones, influence his action, render his portrayal instinct with life. Imagination in some form is generally inherent in all of us. If it lies dormant, it can be cultivated and brought to bear upon the singer's work. This is absolutely essential. Analysis. I have put analysis last because it is the crowning virtue, the prime necessity. We study analysis here in the studios, learning how to separate music into its component parts, together with simple chord formations, general form and structure of the pieces, and so on. Can you comprehend the dense ignorance of many music students on these subjects? They will come here to me, never having analyzed a bit of music in their lives, having not an inkling of what chord structure and form in music mean. If they played piano even a little, they could hardly escape getting a small notion of chord formation. But frequently vocal students know nothing of the piano. They are too apt to be superficial. It is an age of superficiality and cramming. We see these evils all the way from the college man down. I am a Yale man and don't like to say anything about college government, yet I cannot shut my eyes to the fact that men may spend 4 years going through college and yet not be educated when they come out. Most of us are in too much of a hurry and so fail to take time enough to learn things thoroughly. Above all, we never stop to analyze. Analysis should begin at the very outset of our vocal or instrumental study. We analyze the notes of the music we are singing, and a little later its form. We analyze the ideas of the composer and also our own thoughts and ideas to try and bring them in harmony with his. After analyzing the passage before us, we may see it in a totally different light, and so phrase and deliver it with an entirely different idea from what we might have done without this intelligent study. Conscious or unconscious control. Do you advise conscious action of the parts comprising the vocal instrument, or do you prefer unconscious control of the instrument, with thought directed to the ideal quality in tone production and delivery, was asked. By all means, unconscious control was the emphatic answer. We wish to produce beautiful sounds. If the throat is open, the breathing correct, and we have a mental concept of that beautiful sound, we are bound to produce it. It might be almost impossible to produce correct tones if we thought constantly about every muscle in action. There is a great deal of nonsense talked and written about the diaphragm, vocal cords, and other parts of the anatomy. It is all right for the teacher who wishes to be thoroughly trained, to know everything there is to know about the various organs and muscles. I would not discourage this. But for the young singer, I consider it unnecessary. Think supremely of the beautiful tones you desire to produce. Listen for them with the outer ear and the inner ear, that is to say, mentally, and you will hear them. Meanwhile, control is becoming more and more habitual until it approaches perfection and at last becomes automatic. When that point is reached, your sound-producing instrument does the deed, while your whole attention is fixed on the interpretation of a masterwork, the performance of which requires your undivided application. If there is action, you control that in the same way until it also becomes automatic. Then both singing and acting are spontaneous. Does the singer hear himself? This question was put to Mr. Witherspoon, who answered, "The singer of course hears himself, and with study learns to hear himself better. In fact, I believe the lack of this part of vocal training is one of the greatest faults of the day, and that the singer should depend more upon hearing the sound he makes than upon feeling the sound. In other words, train the ear, the chord of ultimate resort, and the only judge, and forget sensation as much as possible, for the latter leads to a million confusions." Undoubtedly, a singer hears in his own voice what his auditors do not hear, for he also hears with his inner ear, but the singer must learn to hear his own voice as others hear it, which he can do perfectly well. Here we come to analysis again. The phonograph records teach us much in this respect, although I never have considered that the phonograph reproduces the human voice. It comes near it in some cases, utterly fails in others, and the best singers do not always make the best or most faithful reproductions.